Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Fandoms Assemble, where we'll be breaking down content from all your favorite fandoms, from the Marvel Universe to Harry Potter and the wider Wizarding World, Disney, Pixar, Star Wars, Game of Thrones, and really whatever else this golden age of IP decides to throw at us next. My name's Steve Oborn Jr., and I'll be your host as we embark on this journey through the magic of modern-day media. I'd like to take a moment to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending a portion of your day with me, and I hope you find this pod to be both entertaining and informative, but most importantly, a satisfying resource for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. If you're like me, you run to the Reddit boards and Twitter feeds after that latest episode drops, and you're already Googling Easter eggs on the ride home from the movie theater. I'm here to tell you that that's okay. There are others of us out there, and I hope that Fandoms Assemble can be the arena where all that beautiful obsession can live and grow. Let's get to it. This episode of Fandoms Assemble will be covering Falcon and the Winter Soldier Episode 2. Before we get into the details of that episode, a quick recap of what we saw in Episode 1. We got Sam Wilson, a.k.a. the Falcon, working with the Air Force fighting the LAF. Meanwhile, Bucky Barnes, the former Winter Soldier, is in therapy fighting demons of his own, as well as the guilt of killing Yori Nakajima's son. We get an intro here to the Flag Smashers, an anti-nationalist terror organization bent on bringing the world back to the blip chaos, and a cliffhanger at the end of the new Captain America, John Walker. Man, I hate that guy. So we open up Episode 2 with everyone's favorite pincushion from Episode 1, John Walker back at his old high school in Georgia for a GMA spot. We find John in his old high school football locker room when enters his wife or his girlfriend in an attempt to make this guy more likable, and honestly, it almost works. They reminisce on their high school days and how she used to sneak into the locker room before games to see him. When enters Lamar Hoskins, John's old high school buddy, and as we find out, his current sidekick, Battlestar. John's girlfriend leaves, and Hoskins and Walker treat us to a conversation similar to those that Steve was having when he was first on his USO tours as Captain America. And Hoskins explains to him, listen, man, you're not in the Avengers. This is what the job is. You are the Star-Spangled Man with a plan. No, you are not going overseas and selling war bonds in front of the USO girls. But one of your primary functions is to do shit like this, where you're going to go on Good Morning America and you're going to give a pep talk to the nation. We notice here, thankfully, and I guess we noticed it in Episode 1 as well, that the Captain America uniform has changed. They went from a straight star to incorporating the letter A. A nice design change for the U.S. government to make. Obviously, Pepper, I don't think, is making this suit for them anymore. And as he enters the field to head out to the stage, we definitely see that Captain America is still a celebrity. As he heads through the tunnel, he's signing Captain America action figures and giving other autographs, taking selfies with people, and, you know, even though Steve is gone, it appears the American public, at least in John Walker's own hometown, is eagerly awaiting the revival of the mantle. In order to validate John Walker for the Falcon and the Winter Soldier audience, we then have GMA's Sarah Haynes run through his resume. 3 Medals of Honor, the head of some counterterrorism and hostage rescue missions, as well as the results of, I guess, the extensive study they did to choose who was going to be Captain America, a study done by MIT where apparently John Walker scored off the charts in things such as speed, endurance, and intelligence. But remember what Erskine said in Captain America the First Avenger, when Tommy Lee Jones is looking to put the best soldier out on the field with the super soldier serum, Erskine's looking for the best man. And it's apparent from his conversations in this episode that there's some character flaws to John Walker. Yes, they tried to make him likable all throughout the episode, but when it comes to his interactions with Sam Wilson and Bucky, especially when they try and challenge his authority, you can see the man that he becomes. We also see Bucky sitting on the floor of his apartment as the interview rolls on. John Walker's talking about how Steve is a brother to him and how he wants to live up to the example that Steve Rogers set for him. And you can just tell Bucky is ready to throw up. Steve really is his brother, was his brother. And for this guy to be going and using his name in vain, basically, just to garner the respect, I guess, of the viewers of Good Morning America, you could see how disgusted Bucky is by it. Cut to Sam Wilson and First Lieutenant Torres in an airplane hangar, prepping Sam to take an anti-Flag Smashers mission to Munich, where much to the dismay, Bucky storms in yelling at Sam about John Walker and how he could ever give up the mantle of Captain America and, most importantly, the shield of Captain America to the federal government. We then have a heart-wrenching exchange where Bucky talks about how the shield was Steve's legacy, it was everything he stood for, to which Sam retorts that him and Steve may never be able to understand, but Sam did what he thought was right at the time. Now, after giving this some thought and some clarity that we gain through the rest of the episode, particularly as we touch on Isaiah Bradley's story, I'm getting the feeling more and more that Sam gave up the mantle of Captain America because he didn't think that the United States was ready for a black Captain America, which is why later in the episode he gets so mad at Bucky and specifically says there was a black super soldier running around and no one knew about it. More on that later, but further on this scene, Sam shows Bucky the information that Red Wings gathered on the Flag Smashers, fills Bucky in about what the Flag Smashers mission is and what they're currently going to do. And then there's a very funny line that Sam throws in for context on the discussion where he thinks that they're going after one of the big three, which would be androids, aliens, or wizards, stating that anytime the Avengers ever went out for a fight, they were fighting one of those three, to which Bucky replies by throwing a bone to fantasy heads in the Fandoms Assemble audience by asking if he's running after Gandalf, citing that he knows who Gandalf is because he read The Hobbit back in 1937 when it first came out. There's obvious tension on the plane with them as they head to Munich, and as they're jumping out at the landing site, there is a great callback to Steve and Captain America and the Winter Soldier as Bucky jumps out of the plane without a chute. On the ground in Munich, Sam and Bucky approach an abandoned warehouse as Red Wing does a little surveillance. We then have a White Wolf reference as Bucky's trying to sneak around, and Sam asks him if all that time on Wakanda left him as the White Panther. I will be very interested to see if this White Wolf character is assimilated somehow into Bucky's character moving forward in this franchise. The two continue to argue as they come across 7 combatants and 1 supposed hostage, and Bucky runs off after the 2 18-wheelers pulling out of the abandoned warehouse. Breaking into one of the containers, Bucky sees that they're stealing vaccines. When Bucky finds the hostage in the back of the truck, an 18-year-old looking redheaded girl.
Bucky, talk to me. What's going on?
Found the hostage. You okay?
Buck, she's not a hostage. And with super soldier strength, she kicks him clean out of that truck, whereafter a fight with 5 different super soldiers ensues, and, at least for the moment in time, we lose Red Wing. A moment of silence. John Walker and Wonder Boy show up and kind of help, but are also way outmanned against super soldiers. Hoskins gets kicked off the back of the truck. There's a cool scene where Bucky just picks the Captain America shield out of clean air and hands it back to John Walker. And then we have one of the most infuriating moments to date in the MCU where John Walker pulls out a gun. A definite record scratch moment here, and I'm going to take just a few minutes to talk about why this is so screwed up. The Captain America symbol is a shield. It's not a weapon, it's not a gun, a sword, a hammer, it's a shield. And the meaning behind that is that Captain America isn't looking to hurt anyone, he's simply looking to defend himself. Yes, did Steve whip that thing around and mess dudes up? Absolutely. But much like Harry Potter, one of my other favorite fandoms, Harry uses Expelliarmus almost exclusively and to his detriment most times because he's a true hero and he would rather disarm someone rather than use a spell that could hurt or kill them. So for John Walker to pull out a fucking gun and try and shoot an 18-year-old girl that, yes, has super soldier powers and is kicking his ass, but to pull out a gun just shows what kind of man they've chosen as the next Captain America. This is also demonstrated to me, at least, in a few minutes where Sam and Bucky are walking behind the truck and John Walker's talking about all the times he jumped on a grenade using some fancy trick with his helmet. Well, listen, Steve Rogers is America's shield. He jumps on a grenade with his bare body. He jumped on a grenade before he was ever a super soldier. And man, oh man, did that in just one moment make this guy, it did irrevocable damage to John Walker's image, in my opinion. Back to the details of the episode, we then have Sam and Bucky walking down the street. And again, Sam brings up how in the world after 80 years are there more super soldiers running around? outside of Hydra, who was getting super soldier serum and why is it so easy to get? I talked about this in the analysis in episode 1 of Fandoms Assemble, but again, if I'm Bruce Banner, why is it so easy for all these people in other countries to replicate this serum and he was never able to do so himself? Walker and Hoskins then roll up on Bucky and Sam as they're walking down the street, in which Bucky throws at him, "Just because you carry that shield doesn't make you Captain America." Damn right, Bucky. John Walker reveals that he found them in the first place because he was tracking Red Wing through Sam's systems, and after getting in the truck, they discuss the Global Repatriation Council and what John and Hoskins know about the Flag Smashers and their mission. The Global Repatriation Council is supposed to be handling re-citizenizing all the people of the world who were snapped back, getting back their health care and their social security. We then get an honestly mind-boggling comment from Hoskins, aka Battlestar, about how Bucky and Sam need them because they were getting beat down before Walker and Hoskins showed up. And honestly, all this guy Hoskins did was get thrown off the truck, and without Walker there to catch him with the shield, the dude would be roadkill. So take a seat, son. Bucky and Sam clearly echo those same sentiments as they jump out of the truck and head off on their own road. We then get to see where the Flag Smashers went after they beat up Sam, Bucky, Walker, and Lamar Hoskins. We find them at a safe house somewhere in Germany, where sympathizers of the Flag Smasher mission have left out quite a spread. Most importantly from this scene, we get a name reveal in Carly Morgenthau. Now call back to Fandom Academy Lesson 1, Carl Morgenthau was the singular Flag Smasher in the Marvel comic book canon. Now, if it's my guess, I say that they've simply transposed the character from male to female. And in a plot twist, Carly Morgenthau is actually the leader of the Flag Smashers, not the big tall dude with the long hair that we saw beat up Torres in episode 1. We see Carly get a text from an unknown source we later find out to be the power broker, who says, "You took what was mine, I'm going to find you, and I'm going to kill you." As we know, the U.S. government is hot on Carly's trail. We see an Interpol notice come out that is looking for Carly and all the Flag Smashers by name and picture. They then reference how the GRC, the Global Repatriation Council, cares more about the returnees than the people who lived through the blip, and that is why the Flag Smashers are looking to bring the world back to pre-blip times, as they feel they've been really left out in this global rebuild, which is why they're stealing vaccines for the refugee camps that we know are spread across Eastern Europe, per Sam's intel. Back to our guys on their ride home from Munich, where they're discussing the shield and Bucky saying, "Come on, Sam, let's just go take it," to which Sam reminds him, "Hey, remember what happened last time? You weren't around, but me and Steve and Sharon and Wanda, we were on the run for 2 years. This guy's already lost 5 years of his life with the blip. He's not looking to go on the run again. The guy, he's got a stable job working with the Air Force. He's beloved as an Avenger. He wants to keep fighting with the Avengers, should they still exist moving forward. And there's just no way as a soldier, and as the man that Sam is, he's going to go in and beat up John Walker to take back the mantle that he willingly gave up just a few months ago." But then Bucky drops the bombshell and say, "Hey Sam, there's really someone you gotta meet." To Baltimore, Maryland, that plane goes to the home of none other than Isaiah Bradley. As we know from our rapid fire Easter egg segment in episode 1 of Fandoms Assemble, Isaiah Bradley is the first black Captain America. Maybe not in comic book release order, but in Marvel comic books canon, in the 1940s, Isaiah Bradley was the first black super soldier and the first black Captain America. At his front door, Sam and Bucky run into Isaiah's grandson. Keep an eye on him for our Easter egg segment this episode. Bucky says, "Tell Isaiah that it's the guy from the bar in Goyang." Now, once inside, we find out that Bucky was working for Hydra during the Korean War, killing American soldiers, when the U.S. government dropped Isaiah Bradley behind enemy lines to take out the Winter Soldier. Much to Isaiah's not-so-happy remembrance, we find out that he ripped off half of Bucky's arm. He won. But unfortunately, like the slimy reptile that Isaiah thinks Bucky is, that arm obviously has grown back, so to speak. Just to throw another mental monkey wrench into Bucky's head, when Bucky tells him he's not that same guy, he's not a killer anymore, Isaiah says that's BS. You can't just wake up one day and decide what you are. If you're a killer, you're a killer. Isaiah then demonstrates by hurling an ashtray 2 feet into the wall that he is indeed a super soldier, and reveals that he was jailed for 30 years after his service was over. But we'll talk about that more in this episode's Fandom Academy. Stay tuned. After being thrown out of Isaiah's house, Sam and Bucky argue in the street. Sam is clearly pissed again. No one ever told him that there was a black super soldier at some time in the past, that there was a black Captain America. Now, as they're arguing, shout out to McNulty, Bunk, and Lieutenant Daniels, the Baltimore PD rolls up on them. In a classic case of racial profiling, they ask to see Sam's ID but not Bucky's ID before the other officer realizes that, hey, these guys are the Avengers. Much to my great joy, someone finally recognizes Bucky. Then he gets arrested, of course, as he's been gallivanting in Munich and hasn't been showing up for his daily, weekly, court-ordered therapy sessions, where we then pick up at the police station with Sam meeting Bucky's therapist. John Walker apparently knows Bucky's therapist too. John Walker there to spring Bucky Barnes from police custody, in which he tells Bucky's therapist that he's now under John's supervision. I have no idea what that means for Bucky moving forward, or how, just as Captain America, John Walker even has the authority to overrule the conditions of a government pardon. But before she lets him go, Buck's therapist then forces him and Sam into an interrogation room where they're having an impromptu therapy session. A couples therapy session, in fact, and through much bickering and a few staring contests, Sam and Bucky finally open up to each other. Bucky reveals that he's pissed that Sam gave up the shield. Actually, in a correction to a comment I made earlier, this is where Sam says, you guys might not be able to understand, but I did what I thought was right. Thought was right is the note I made here. Does Sam not think he made the right decision anymore? Does Sam now want to take up the mantle of Captain America now that he knows Isaiah Bradley exists? Now he knows what kind of guy John Walker is, and that the government was still going to resurrect the mantle of Captain America with or without Sam? Sam then storms out saying that, you know what, let's just finish the mission and then we never have to see each other again. On his way out the door, Bucky makes a really sad comment to his therapist about not wanting to hurt people. And then outside we find John Walker and Lamar Hoskins sitting by a police cruiser, and we find out that they have a beat on Carly Morgenthau. They know where she is. Walker is then still under the delusion that just because the government gave him the shield and he broke Bucky out of jail, that Sam and Bucky are suddenly going to like him and want to work together. Sam quickly corrects that and says, hey, we're free agents. Yeah, dude, we're superheroes. We're the Avengers. Go kick rocks. We just brought back half the universe and defeated Thanos. No, we don't want to work with you. To which again, in a complete reversal of all the goodwill they tried to create in the first few minutes of this episode for John Walker, he says, hey, if you're not going to work with me, then get the hell out of my way. And as he turns around, we get the little stab to the gut of seeing him walk away with the Captain America shield on his back. Cut to the Flag Smashers at the airport where they're trying to move the stolen vaccines, where the Power Brokers men roll up on them heavy. Now, the one thing I took away from this episode, again, not yet delving into the history of the Power Broker and wanting to see how that character unfolds in Falcon and the Winter Soldier before I divulge any more here, I really want to know, given that they're posing him as a colleague, an acquaintance to the Flag Smashers, who are this kind of underground rebel group, why are the Power Brokers men, one in military uniforms, and again, this dude's in a suit and tie with a bulletproof vest on, almost like he's a police officer? What kind of guy is the power broker, and what could Carly have stolen from him that would lead him to roll so heavy with like 20 guys with automatic weapons in order to get it back? Is it the super soldier serum? Were Carly and the other flag smashers not super soldiers to begin with? Is it something to do with the storyline I touched on in Fandom Academy last week, where the Roxxon Oil Corporation is actually the ones who gave Carl, i.e. Carly Morgenthau, her superpowers? Is the power broker somehow tied in with them, and Carly just stole the rest of the super soldier serum? It'll be very interesting to see. We're then back outside the police station with Bucky and Sam as they go their separate ways, and Bucky needs to know how the hell there are super soldiers still running around. He was intimately involved with Hydra's super soldier program, and he knows through the events of Captain America and the Winter Soldier that Hydra had a kill squad of other super soldiers running around. Now, how did they develop that serum? Where did that serum go afterwards? His number one source to get that information is Helmut Zemo, who knew so intimately of Hydra's super soldier program that he used it as bait to get Tony and Cap to that facility in Russia, where he was then able to show Tony the video of Bucky killing his parents. So in an astonishing plot twist, episode 3 is geared for Sam and Bucky to go visit Zemo. Now, before we get into that any further, our mission here at Fandoms Assemble is to become the number one source on the internet for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows. To honor that promise, here are the top 5 questions from episode 2 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Question number 1. How are Sam and Bucky turning to Zemo for help? Maybe I misunderstood all the trailers, but they definitely pose Zemo as the big bad in this whole show. Now, I discussed in episode 1 how I thought Zemo might be morphed into the Carl Morgenthau character as the leader of the Flag Smashers. Clearly, with Carly in place in this episode, that's not going to be the case. But rather than Zemo be a secondary villain in this series, it looks like they're gearing towards an old-fashioned villain-hero team-up in order to take down the Flag Smashers. I'm really very, very surprised. I mean, I guess with this long-form storytelling that Disney Plus enables Marvel to do, they can get into the nuances of how a hero and a villain could team up. But this is honestly nothing that we could have foreseen before, when we were just dealing with MCU movies with a compressed timeline where they could never make it make sense that Zemo might team up with the Winter Soldier after what happened in the prior movies. I've really been combing through all of these teasers since this episode ended, and I'm trying to make sense of this on how what they showed us before this series started, Zemo could be a pseudo good guy in this series, and what the implications are for that moving forward as we get into Bucky potentially being the White Wolf. Again, we'll touch on that more in the Easter egg segment, but Bucky potentially being the White Wolf in a future Wakanda series, and how it's reconciled that Zemo not only tore apart the Avengers, but also killed King T'Chaka. Question number 2. Who the hell does John Walker think he is? I understand that this guy has 3 Medals of Honor. He's led multiple counterterrorism and rescue missions over his career, and he was chosen as the model soldier to take up the Captain America mantle. But he needs to make no mistake that he was chosen by the U.S. government. He is the USO Captain America. He is not Captain America the Avenger. He is not Captain America the leader of the Avengers. So for him to try and bully Sam and Bucky to fight with him and to tell them to stay the hell out of his way, this dude better get a reality check quick. Bucky could kill him in an instant. He's not going to, but he definitely could. And Sam has no obligation to the U.S. government anymore. He is an independent contractor through his position as an Avenger, where he will fight as the Falcon. But listen, man, you guys need to have some self-awareness here and realize that Sam thought he was turning over the shield for it to go into retirement, not for you to break it out a month later and choose a white guy. Question number 3. What is the Flag Smashers' agenda and why are they stealing meds? As we discussed in Fandom Academy Lesson 1, the Flag Smashers' sole agenda was anti-nationalism, and as Episode 1 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier explained, these Flag Smashers are focused on a world without borders. Now, if I'm an anti-nationalist terror organization, I'm not wasting my efforts stealing vaccines for refugee camps when I could be doing other government espionage and covert destabilizing attacks on central targets. This little vaccine run seems very insignificant other than to garner public support, which this host in Germany who laid out the beds and the food for them has said they've already gotten. So what is Carly Morgenthau's motivation? What did she steal from the power broker? And how does that all tie together? I'm hoping we find out more information on this in episode 3. But to me, it seems that the anti-nationalist world without borders characterization is not only misunderstood outside the group, but is misunderstood inside the group. I mean, just looking around the room when they're in that little safe house, it seems like a lot of them are uncomfortable with what they're doing. They're uncomfortable with how much heat they're getting. And I think that a lot of their motivations are more altruistic than, say, Luke and Leia trying to destabilize the Empire by going and blowing up the Death Star. Question number 4, and we kind of covered this already, but who is the power broker and what could Carly have stolen from him? As I questioned in the episode recap, I don't have a good enough understanding of who the power broker is to know why his guys are rolling up in legitimate military and police officer uniforms to attack the Flag Smashers and their vaccine run. From his text to Carly, you get the impression that he is some sort of underground radical like she is, but after seeing his men, I'm under the impression that he's going to be much more of a out in the open, white-collar kind of villain as opposed to someone who's planning bank robberies in masks. As for what Carly stole, my best guess would be the super soldier serum. Now, how they were turned into super soldiers are the thing that Carly stole from him, the rest of the Flag Smasher super soldiers that were under the employ of the power broker. That could very well be. Or was it some sort of serum itself? And if that's the case, then how did Carly enact that serum? Where the hell did she get a Vita-Ray chamber or however else they're stabilizing the super soldier serum nowadays? And what kind of firepower does this guy have? I mean, clearly he just took out a super soldier at the end of this episode, but what kind of firepower does this guy have that he thinks he can take on a team of super soldiers to make Carly pay for stealing whatever she stole? And question number 5, who is Isaiah Bradley? In order for Fandoms Assemble to truly be the #1 source on the internet for all those who love to think way too hard about our favorite movies, books, and television shows, we can't just raise life's great questions, we gotta answer a few of them ourselves. So sharpen your pencils, crack open those textbooks, turn off that latest episode of Good Morning America, and join us for Fandom Academy Lesson 2, Isaiah Bradley. We first meet the triangular shield-wielding first black Captain America, Isaiah Bradley, in 2003's Truth, Red, White, and Black, a 7-part series focused on America's race with Nazi Germany to recreate Erskine's initial super soldier serum. In an allusion to one of the darkest parts of American history, the Tuskegee study, a 40-year collaboration from 1932 to 1972 in which the CDC and the U.S. Public Health Service deceived almost 400 African-American men into thinking they were receiving free health care when really the government was just studying them to determine the medical impacts of leaving a sexually transmitted disease untreated. Truth, Red, White, and Black covers the U.S. government's efforts to test the super soldier serum on 300 black soldiers. Of the 300 men enlisted to participate in this scientific experiment, only 5 survive, and after 4 of those men die in field missions, we're left with Isaiah Bradley as the one out of 300 that was successfully turned into a super soldier and didn't die as a result. In the comic, Isaiah Bradley then steals a spare Captain America costume and sets off to destroy the Nazi super soldier efforts. In Falcon and the Winter Soldier, we hear Isaiah Bradley reference to Bucky Barnes that not only did the U.S. government experiment on him, but his people, i.e. Hydra, also performed experiments on him. In Truth, Red, White, and Black, Isaiah Bradley gets captured by the Nazis and brought before Hitler himself, who experiments on him to try and extract the super soldier serum from his blood. Bradley is ultimately rescued by the end of the run, but is immediately court-martialed and imprisoned from 1943 until he was pardoned in 1960. Isaiah Bradley also appears in 2004's Captain America Volume 4, issue number 28, as a multiverse Captain America, where in his timeline, he is the sole Captain America and actually becomes a 2-term president. After being pardoned in 1960, Isaiah Bradley returned home and was a thing of legend in the black community. Unfortunately, given the fact that the super soldier serum he was given was not created by Dr. Erskine, the long-term effects left him with severe mental deficiencies similar to those one would experience with late-stage Parkinson's. Needless to say, Isaiah Bradley was an icon in the black community in Marvel Comics, visited by the likes of Malcolm X to Muhammad Ali to Richard Pryor and Nelson Mandela. He was also revered by the superheroes in this universe, a special guest at the wedding of Black Panther and Storm, with other notable fans such as Luke Cage, WandaVision favorite Monica Rambeau, and of course, Falcon and the Winter Soldier's own Sam Wilson. I sincerely hope that Sam makes his way back to Isaiah's house in Baltimore, and that ultimately knowing that there was a Black Captain America before will help Sam in making the decision to reclaim the mantle from John Walker. That'll do it for this week's Fandom Academy. I hope you found that segment to be educational, and now here are some rapid-fire Easter eggs that you might have missed. Number 1, in Isaiah Bradley's house in Baltimore, we see his grandson Elijah. Now, Elijah has a comic book canon of his own as Patriot, the leader of the Young Avengers. But it doesn't stop there, folks. We now have 3 Young Avengers in the last 2 Marvel television shows, along with Cassie Lang, bound to play a larger role in Quantumania, and Kate Bishop, Hawkeye's daughter, being a part of the Hawkeye television series coming later this year. Those 2 young ladies partnered with Isaiah Bradley's grandson Elijah and Billy and Tommy, Wanda and Vision's kids, make up almost the entirety of the Young Avengers. With no clear path on where Phase 4 is going to take us, it would be very interesting if the purpose of this run of Marvel television shows with WandaVision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, maybe Loki, but definitely Hawkeye, is to set up the future phases of the MCU to be taken over by the next generation. Number 2, Sam references the big 3, aliens, androids, and wizards. Now, yes, that does coincide with many of the villains that have been fought so far in the MCU timeline, with aliens, androids as an Ultron, and wizards being, Doctor Strange's enemies as well as Ebony Maw in Endgame. But I also find a very strong connection in those 3 categories with how Disney Plus is laying out these Marvel television shows, and how Phase 4 will progress after we're through with them. One of the central fan theories out there during WandaVision, outside of the Mephisto madness, was that Ultron would be coming back in some way, shape, or form, that he somehow survived the events of Age of Ultron. We, of course, also know that there is a Secret Invasion show planned, as well as the ending of WandaVision where we saw the Skrulls and the Skrulls at the end of Spider-Man Far From Home. And lastly, Wizards, which is leading up directly to Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness and the ending of WandaVision, with Wanda turning into the Scarlet Witch. Therefore, I see no reference to the past of the MCU and very much a reference to the future of the MCU in the big three comments that Sam echoed and John Walker later echoed throughout the episode. And finally, my favorite of the episode is the White Wolf. As we said in the episode breakdown, when sneaking around the abandoned warehouse, Sam makes a joke that Bucky is turned into the White Panther after his time in Wakanda, to which he corrects him that no, he is the White Wolf. Of course, in the post-credit scenes of Black Panther, we see both the children of Wakanda and T'Challa himself reference Bucky as the White Wolf. Now, I raised concerns at the end of episode 1 that Bucky's relative anonymity in this series brings into question his future with the Avengers, the fact that no one recognizes him as the Winter Soldier or as even Bucky Barnes the Avenger, and how that relative unknown could participate in the major storylines moving forward. That being said, we know that Ryan Coogler is being brought on to develop a Wakanda television show for Disney+, as well as Black Panther 2, slated for a July 8th, 2022 release. Now, short of opening another Fandom Academy lesson, a little background on the White Wolf. The White Wolf is a character in Marvel Comics whose parents had died in a plane crash just north of Wakanda, and the White Wolf, also known as Hunter, was adopted by King T'Chaka. Raised as T'Challa and Shuri's brother, Hunter, or the White Wolf, was raised to be a protector of Wakanda, even going on to lead the Wakanda Secret Police. Now, some of the White Wolf's character arc was definitely assimilated into the Killmonger character in Black Panther 1, particularly when it comes to storylines of him challenging T'Challa for the throne of Wakanda. However, I think it would be a really cool storyline, particularly in light of Chadwick Boseman's passing, for Bucky to somehow be involved with Shuri taking the mantle as Black Panther, but Bucky returning to be an equal protector of Wakanda as the White Wolf, whether that be in Black Panther 2 or in the Wakanda television show, but enabling him to use his skill set, for lack of a better word, in a place, the only place in his 106 years of living where he truly found any peace. As I said, this is really a thread I could pull on all day long, but for now, that'll do it for rapid fire Easter eggs that you might have missed. Folks, again, if you made it this far, I'd just like to thank you from the bottom of my heart for spending a portion of your day with me. If you enjoyed the pod, please go subscribe, rate, and review on whatever your preferred podcast channel is. Also, if you have friends, family, a neighbor, a dog, a grandma who loves Falcon and the Winter Soldier, loves the Marvel comic books, and would like to learn more and stay updated with the latest fan theories and education, it is your obligation to share the Fandoms Assemble podcast with them. Also, for clips of this episode, more Fandoms Assemble content and news and notes coming from me, please go subscribe and follow to @FandomsPod, FANDOMS pod, on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. But for now, that'll do it for episode 2 of Fandoms Assemble. Come back next time where we'll be covering episode 3 of Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Until next time.